In my previous life, I married the only daughter of the richest man. However, my elder brother, regardless of the opposition of the family, willfully chose a university professor. In less than 3 months, he couldn't stand the dull life. But the university professor was deeply in love and firmly refused to divorce. After my elder brother's crying, making a scene, and threatening suicide were all in vain, he became an unseemly public lover in order to obtain the life he wanted. He shuttled among different women, and was despised by others. And with the identity of the husband of the only daughter of the richest man, I appeared in various high-end events and lived the life that my elder brother dreamed of. My elder brother was so jealous that he fell off the rooftop with me in his arms. As soon as I opened my eyes, I was back on the blind date dinner that day. This time, my elder brother took the lead in putting his arm around the shoulder of the only daughter of the richest man. He said, "I have the destiny of a rising dragon, and should marry the only daughter of the richest man." I heaved a long sigh. Isn't a life of elegance, plainness, and comfort wonderful? When my elder brother put his arm around the shoulder of the only daughter of the richest man, I knew that he was also reborn. In the previous life, my parents held a blind date dinner with the purpose of choosing the best marriage partners for my brother and me to help the family rise to a higher level. A target determined by my parents for my elder brother was Rose, the only daughter of the richest man. However, my elder brother, who was overly indulged, willfully insisted on marrying his university teacher, Rebecca. Mom and Dad, without love, I can't live even one day. Besides, I am the elder brother, and should let my younger brother have her. So give the only daughter of the richest man to my younger brother. The result will be the same. In this life, after he chose the only daughter of the richest man, he arrogantly leaned towards me and said, "I have the destiny of a rising dragon, and should marry the only daughter of the richest man." When my parents saw my elder brother's choice, they were so happy that their teeth were showing but their eyes were not. In this life, my elder brother was only focused on currying favor with the richest man and had completely forgotten Rebecca, who he had brought with him. Rebecca stood alone in the corner. Her beauty and elegance were out of place with the surrounding environment, causing people around to talk. My parents, whose eyes were only on the family of the richest man, Rose, were so elated that they forgot that although the Rebecca family was not as glorious as the Rose family, it was also a century-old business family. Although Rebecca was not involved in business, she was the daughter of the eldest branch of the Rebecca family. I walked towards Rebecca and extended my hand to her. "Hello, Professor Rebecca. I am Michael." To everyone in the business world knows that the men of the Michael family have good genes. The children they have are all outstanding in appearance and have extremely high IQ and DQ. They are the children of others that people envy. Moreover, their genes are strong. No matter what kind of mediocre woman they marry, they can refresh the appearance genes of her family in 1 generation. The children of my uncles and cousins, who are already adults and can take charge of affairs, are all outstanding choices at the moment. Those who are still studying in school are all influential figures in the school. For business people, what they value most is their descendants. An excellent heir can support a family for 3 generations. Therefore, men of the Michael family are very popular. Business tycoons all regard men of the Michael family as the best candidates for son-in-law. Therefore, the Michael family, which was originally poor, has also occupied a place in the business world by virtue of the advantage of having good men. My elder brother and I are twins. My elder brother is sunny, cheerful, sweet-talking, and has a high emotional intelligence. He is very popular with rich and powerful uncles and cousins. I am calm, gentle, and not good at speaking. I like to sit quietly on the side. In the eyes of my parents, I am dull and have a low emotional intelligence. When we were born, there was a phenomenon of a rising dragon in the sky. A wise man calculated and said that this child had the destiny of a rising dragon, and could help the family soar. As soon as he finished speaking, my elder brother was born. I was born 10 minutes later. My family has always only had male heirs. This time, a pair was born. One of them even had the destiny of a rising dragon. My parents exclaimed that it was a blessing from heaven. Since then, my elder brother, who was considered to have the destiny of a rising dragon, was spoiled by my parents. The reputation of the man with the rising dragon also spread throughout the business world, while I had little sense of existence. From childhood to adulthood, my parents can't be said to be unkind to me. It can only be said that everything centers around my elder brother. No matter what it is, he has priority. In the previous life, the blind date dinner held by my parents for my brother and me, due to my elder brother's great reputation as a man with the rising dragon. Except for the Rebecca family in the business world, all business tycoons with marriageable children enthusiastically participated. Although this occasion was held in the name of my brother and me, I knew that I had no choice at all. 3 After my elder brother willfully chose Rebecca, my parents asked me to marry the only daughter of the richest man. Our fates should have been like the phenomenon of a rising dragon when we were born. He should be as brilliant as the sun, while I should be obedient. Unexpectedly, less than 3 months after my elder brother married Rebecca, he got tired of the dull and uneventful life. Since he was young, he has loved high-end business banquets the most. He likes being pursued by others and living in the spotlight. He married Rebecca because he was attracted by her outstanding temperament, extensive knowledge and talent, and beautiful appearance. He wanted to enjoy the thrill of conquest. My elder brother always thought that the Rebecca family was a business family. After marrying Rebecca, there would definitely be no shortage of various high-end events. His life would be the same as before. Unexpectedly, Rebecca was not closely related to her family. Moreover, she was completely not involved in business. She only knew teaching and research. Rebecca's health was not good either. She needed to pay great attention to her diet. My elder brother then found out that he could really only be confined to the role of a professor's husband, and had nothing to do all day. His life was far from what he had imagined. Love is vulnerable in the face of reality. In just a few months, he couldn't stand it anymore and asked for a divorce. But Rebecca was a stubborn person. Under my elder brother's tender offensive for 2 or 3 months, she was deeply in love and firmly refused to divorce. After my elder brother's crying, making a scene, and threatening suicide were all in vain in his request for divorce, he ran home to ask his parents and the rich and powerful uncles of the Michael family for help in getting a divorce. But even I knew that this was impossible. The Rebecca family is a century-old business family with profound heritage. It has made indelible contributions to the liberation cause of Huaxia country. Its business tentacles spread across all major industries. Our Michael family is just a family of son-in-law. In front of the Rebecca family, we are just a cute little thing, and not worthy of mention at all. The most important thing is that the Michael family is relying on the power of the Rebecca family to carry out a project that can change the fate of the family. It is at a critical moment. At this time, if my elder brother divorces Rebecca, it is undoubtedly digging at the foundation of our family's survival. No matter how much my parents spoil my elder brother like Rebecca, it cannot go beyond the fate of the entire family. After my elder brother returned home, he made a big fuss and even made a scene at the old house of the Rebecca family. The Rebecca family was reasonable and actually persuaded Rebecca to agree to divorce. When this news reached my family, my father raised his hand and gave my excited elder brother a slap in the face. "George, Rebecca is the one you insisted on marrying even if it meant death. I warn you that as long as our Michael family doesn't rise to a higher level one day, you can't divorce. Otherwise, I will let the Michael family ban you. Then you will be nothing." My elder brother, who had been worn down by life, was scared. He knew that the life he wanted needed to rely on the Michael family and our relatives by marriage. If his father, who was in charge of the Michael family now, banned him, he would really get nothing. But my elder brother, who had been spoiled since childhood, had never suffered such grievances. He didn't know whether it was to retaliate against his father or to obtain the life he wanted. He actually chose to become a public lover. Whoever gave more money, could taste the flavor of the man with the rising dragon. He shuttled among different women, then was despised and lived in secrecy. And with the identity of the husband of the only daughter of the richest man, I appeared in various high-end events with high profile, and lived the life that my elder brother dreamed of. One day, Rose was named the annual business elite by a national authoritative media. She took me to attend the award ceremony. After my elder brother found out, he pestered his current lover and also entered the ceremony site. He secretly found me and insisted on taking me to a secluded place to talk. Looking at my elder brother who had already lost his former spirit, and looked very old due to excessive indulgence, I couldn't help but sigh. While walking towards the rooftop with him, I thought that his original life was elegant, peaceful, and didn't have to face the complicated social interactions of a big family. Moreover, the Rebecca family had profound heritage, and this reasonable. Professor Rebecca was excellent, beautiful, and deeply loved and respected my elder brother. Why did he make his life like this? Rose was not even comparable to a finger of Rebecca, the family of Rose. But unexpectedly, my elder brother was already extremely jealous of me. Clearly he had the destiny of a rising dragon. He should be the protagonist who commands with authority in such high-end business events. Under resentment and jealousy, my elder brother actually hugged me, and fell from the high rooftop together. As soon as I opened my eyes, he couldn't wait to choose the only daughter of the richest man, Rose. Then, I will strive for the elegant, plain, and comfortable life that I have always dreamed of. For I held Rebecca's somewhat cold hand and go with the flow put my arm around her shoulder, taking her out of that dark corner. I put on my coat for her who was afraid of the cold. She looked up at me, her eyes flickering. I stared into her eyes and gently said, "Are you hungry? Let's eat something." I took her to my favorite corner. It was very secluded, but the lighting was warm and soft. The cold air couldn't reach here. It was very suitable for Rebecca. I got hot milk, porridge, soft pastries, and light side dishes for her who had a bad stomach. Just as she was about to eat, a sarcastic voice broke the secrecy. "Tsk. Truly, Miss Rebecca. Even you, who are so lofty, have come to compete for this man with the rising dragon? Unfortunately, even if you were brought by George. So what? He chose me without hesitation. Now he is mine." As she spoke, Rose patted my elder brother's face like patting her dog, and looked at Rebecca provocatively. My elder brother, who was treated like this, seemed unconcerned. He intimately and blatantly put his arm around Rose, the only daughter of the richest man who was as domineering as in the previous life. Rebecca was the biggest psychological shadow of the second-generation rich in the business world. When the Roses were still rebellious, she, a genius girl, had already won several international gene research awards. Now she is a professor at Top 1 University A and also a visiting professor at Ivy League schools such as Harvard University. Rebecca is someone that Rose can't catch up with even if she tries her best. In this female competition, Rose unexpectedly won over Rebecca. Naturally, she wanted to vent her anger. My elder brother turned around and kissed Rose on her red lips. Then, he pressed his face against Rose's and stared at Rebecca, saying in a sickeningly sweet voice, "Baby, this bookworm's face, figure, and sense of fashion are not even worthy of carrying your shoes." Moreover, he turned his head again, as if whispering in Rose's ear. But his voice was so loud that everyone could hear. "She has no charm at all. As long as one has eyes, one won't choose her." My elder brother was clearly carrying the resentment from the previous life. I stood up and stood in front of Rebecca. "Brother, that's too much." My elder brother didn't hide the hatred in his eyes at all and stared at me. "Why? Do you want to pick up my cast-offs? But a bookworm and a dull person are indeed a good match." My elder brother forcefully slapped my face. I grabbed his hand. "I am picking up cast-offs. What are you then?" I stared at him without backing down. After all, we both had previous lives. My elder brother saw the unfriendly look in my eyes and thought of something. Feeling a little cowardly, he left with Rose, who was still clamoring, looking at my elder brother's back. You will gradually realize how good Rose is in the future. Under such circumstances, I first sent Rebecca home. 5. There was no conversation along the way. When the car stopped in front of Rebecca's apartment building, Rebecca suddenly said, "Why did you help me? If I say I like you, would you believe me?" I said while pulling on the handbrake and turning my head. Rebecca's eyes clearly dimmed. She didn't say anything anymore. She opened the car door and got out. I quickly got out of the car and grabbed Rebecca. Hurriedly, I said, "I haven't decided on a candidate today. Tomorrow, my parents will push me into a family that is beneficial to my family. As a son-in-law, I have no choice at all. But you are the only one I want to choose." Rebecca turned her head. She still had a cold expression. "Why me?" I stared into her eyes and sincerely said, "I don't like the life of socializing and intrigue. And you are not involved in business. Thinking about it, in this circle, only you can give me the life I want. In addition, you like my elder brother. You should be able to like me too. I am at win with him." Rebecca Yebenji, suddenly interrupted me. "You seem to know me very well. My elder brother and I are classmates. I have also taken your class. How is that possible? I don't seem to have seen you." Rebecca narrowed her eyes and said, "Where the sun appears, how can one see the stars?" I said self-mockingly, lowering my head slightly and then raising it again. There was a mist in my eyes. I continued my persuasion work. "Professor Rebecca, I will. Not flirting around and not divorcing easily. These are the basic conditions for marrying me." Rebecca interrupted me again. "What?" I didn't react for a moment. She then continued, "I am very busy with work. I can't do any housework. My health is not very good." I looked at her lips moving up and down and couldn't resist sealing her words with my mouth. The touch was slightly soft and gentle, with a faint mint fragrance, making one reluctant to leave. But I just tasted it briefly, and her beautiful almond-shaped eyes were shining with a moving light. I covered her eyes with my hand. "Don't be afraid. I will take care of you." 6. My wedding was held 10 days later than my elder brother's. In the name of marrying. But in reality, it was like marrying off. Both my elder brother and I left home. After the cumbersome wedding ceremony, Rebecca and I came to her residence near University A. We got married in a semi-strange situation, although we were married in a previous life. The feeling. Needless to say, Rebecca was really inexperienced. When we sat on the big bed covered with rose petals, she would only blush. Life has to go on. Let me take the initiative. I turned her towards me. I lifted her always lowered head with my hand, gently and affectionately. "Aren't you a biologist? Don't you have curiosity?" As expected, she raised her eyes and asked, "Curiosity about what?" I couldn't resist kissing her face and lips several times before saying, "Don't they all say that men of the Michael family have good genes? Haven't you thought about researching it?" As intelligent as she was, after realizing it, there was a light of wanting to research shining in her eyes as she threw herself at me. The moonlight was like gauze, covering us who were in the midst of intense research work. Eileen Chang said, "The shortest way to a woman's heart is love. A journey to change fate begins from now on." 7. After a few days of tenderness and sweetness, Rebecca returned to her normal life. She went to work. When she was not at home, I couldn't be idle either. I sat at the table and carefully planned my future. In the eyes of the business families, our Michael family is a joke. To make an appropriate analogy, it is like a family that raises Yangsu beauties in ancient times. Others cultivate charming and coquettish women, while my family is men. What's worse is that others buy girls, while my family gives away our own flesh and blood. In the previous life, Rose dared to treat me like that because I was an item on the shelf, once bought by someone. I could only be disposed of by the buyer. I don't want to be treated like a pig or a dog anymore. I don't want my children to repeat my fate. Since I want to change my destiny against the heavens, then take a gamble. I believe that my fate is in my own hands. I remember in the previous life, when Rebecca saw that my elder brother had nothing to do and wanted him to be her assistant, my elder brother complained that Rebecca underestimated him. Because of this, they had their first conflict. My elder brother and I majored in business administration in college, but we often went to listen to classes of other majors, such as Rebecca's. My elder brother's purpose was to make friends with second-generation rich people and choose a marriage target, while I was really interested in the biology major. For example, I have always been curious about why my family's genes are like having cheats on. If it weren't for family obstruction, I might have obtained a second bachelor's degree in biology. That night, I proposed to be Rebecca's assistant. She looked at me skeptically. Are you sure you can do it? Don't you know if I can do it? When a man's ability is questioned, he must fight back. After a violent storm, I gently rubbed Rebecca's waist with my hand to relieve her discomfort. My voice was silky. As your assistant, can I do it? Although Rebecca's eyes were full of spring feelings, her tone became solemn. Why do you want to be my assistant? I said. You are too busy. I want to help you but don't know where to start. I don't even dare to tidy up your study. Besides, your stomach is not good. You don't eat things that don't suit your taste. Your health is so poor that you can't even last one round in bed. She patted my butt and glared at me. Your mind is full of lust. I rubbed my head against her face. If I stay by your side, I can always take good care of your diet. I want your body to be strong. We should be together for a long time. Rebecca seemed to be touched. She stared into my eyes and said seriously, Okay. 8 From then on, I began my life as Rebecca's assistant. Every morning, I would get up early and make breakfast for Rebecca. Because we didn't want outsiders at home, we only hired a part-time aunt to be responsible for lunch and dinner. After having breakfast, we would drive to work together. Then, according to Rebecca's wishes, we would ask the aunt to prepare lunch and dinner. At exactly 12 o'clock, we would have lunch together. Dinner was at 6 o'clock. If we were too busy, the aunt would bring it over. If we were not busy, we would go home and eat together. Under my careful care, Rebecca's face became increasingly rosy. In addition to taking care of Rebecca's life, at other times, I would study hard, hoping to take on the responsibilities of a scientific research assistant as soon as possible. One day, my father asked me to bring Rebecca back to the Michael family. This is also a tradition of the Michael family. About a month after getting married, one should return to the family and report the resources one can now control to the family. I heard that Michael has become Professor Rebecca's life assistant. TSK. He is really a good wife. George looked at Rebecca, who came hand in hand with me. There was a flash of annoyance in his eyes. In our family, being able to bring one's wealthy and powerful new wife home is success. Most of the precious wives of the Michael family are very disdainful of entering the Michael family's door. They can't afford to lose face. In the previous life, Rebecca didn't come back with George. Brother, where is your sister-in-law? I thought with your destiny of a rising dragon, your sister-in-law would come to the Michael family's door. I didn't tolerate George and directly counterattacked. There was a flash of resentment in George's eyes. The disappointments of the previous life had changed George's originally cheerful personality. When my father saw that we were about to quarrel, he quickly asked us to go to his study. I arranged Rebecca first before going to the study. George was telling my father about his achievements in the past month or so. For example, Rebecca had charmed the father and daughter of the Rose family. A large real estate project was about to start, and Michael family could participate. My father was extremely excited. I knew about this project in the previous life. At that time, there was a problem and we needed the political connections of Rebecca's family to smooth things out. Because George married Rebecca and our family was needed to build a bridge. So the Michael family was allowed to participate in this project. In this life. Of course. It is because I married Rebecca. After George finished showing off his achievements, he pointed the finger at me again. My younger brother. I heard that Rebecca didn't even take you to the old house of the Rebecca family. That means the Rebecca family hasn't recognized your identity yet. What can you bring to the family? I married Rebecca. I retorted without showing weakness. George burst out laughing, full of ridicule. My father also showed dissatisfaction and asked me to continue working hard. At this time, my elder brother came and sat down next to me again, looking like a loving brother. In a voice that only the two of us could hear, he said, "Younger brother, your sister-in-law is very affectionate towards me and very good. Yesterday evening, she promised to let me take charge of the largest entertainment industry under her name." I nodded. I believed this. Rose also said this to me in the previous life. She didn't break her promise. I did take charge of this part of the industry. But I glanced at George and didn't intend to tell him exactly how to take charge of the so-called entertainment industry. This is what he chose. Isn't it? George was very dissatisfied with my reaction. But my father had already asked us to go out for a meal. He could only shut up reluctantly. During the meal, when he saw me taking care of Rebecca meticulously, George sarcastically called me life assistant and good wife from time to time. My father also intentionally or unintentionally mentioned the matter of Rebecca and not taking me to the Rebecca family's house. I just regarded them as nonsense. But Rebecca idly held my hand under the table. I was already married and didn't want to use the resources of the Michael family to obtain anything anymore. So I had nothing to worry about. After having lunch, I took my leave and went home. What I didn't care about made Rebecca take it very seriously. After returning home, she took my hand and said, "Michael, letting you be my assistant, will it make people laugh at you?" Looking into her serious eyes, I couldn't help but gently stroke her face and said softly, "I am not afraid of being laughed at by others. I am only afraid that you will laugh at me for being stupid and not being able to be your scientific research assistant. Scientific research is very hard. I am afraid that you are doubting my ability again. Do you want me to prove it again?" As I said this, my hand moved down. Rebecca pressed my restless hand and said seriously, "I am serious." I put away my smile. "I am also serious. As long as I am with you, I can overcome anything." Then I lowered my head and whispered in her ear, "I only hope that my wife can teach me more. Then I can work harder in bed." Rebecca pressed her face against my chest and asked in a somewhat indistinct voice, "Do you mind that I didn't take you back to my family's old house?" I pulled her out of my arms and held her face in my hands and said, "I have your family only because I have you. As long as you recognize me, it doesn't matter." Rebecca smiled like a flower and also stretched out her hands to hold my face. "Michael, I am very happy to marry you." After saying that, she stood on tiptoe and kissed my lips. How could I endure this? In the passion, Rebecca hugged my head and said in an unsteady breath, "Michael, next weekend, let's go back to the Rebecca family." Rebecca told me that her mother died of illness when she was 10 years old. When she was 15, her father married a stepmother. Now she has a 9-year-old brother and a 6-year-old sister. Because of this, there was a rift between her and her father. I immediately imagine a melodramatic plot. Drama of a wealthy family feud. I quickly asked her, "Is your mother's death related to your stepmother? Where are your thoughts going?" "Samantha is my mother's best friend. Before my mother died, she entrusted me to her. Samantha is good to me." She gave me a reproachful look with a smile and then continued, "On the contrary, it was because my father took into account my feelings that he delayed marrying her for several years. My family is very good. It's just that I always feel that I am not a family with my father and them anymore. So I don't want to go back to the old house," she said in a somewhat dejected tone. I immediately hugged her and said softly, If you don't want to go back, then don't go back. I really don't mind. As long as I have you. Rebecca tightly wrapped her arms around my waist. On Saturday, Rebecca took me back to the old house of the Rebecca family. She also thoughtfully prepared pleasing gifts for her family and my name. I left a very good first impression on Rebecca's family. Grandpa Rebecca kept praising me for taking good care of Rebecca. She had gained weight. Grandma Rebecca patted me comfortingly and said it was good. Samantha pulled Rebecca into the room to whisper. Probably all fathers-in-law will not be pleased with their son-in-law. Rebecca's father took me to the study with a serious face. I was a little nervous because I didn't know how a real father treated his children. I am very clear about the dealings of your Michael family. By chance, Rebecca married you. But I don't want you to use those dirty means on her. Otherwise, I will make you and your family never be able to rise again. As soon as we sat down, Rebecca's father gave me a blow. Next, Rebecca's father scolded me, tried to win me over, and comforted me. In short, he said the toughest words. But between the lines, he was begging for the softest feelings. Just because I married his favorite daughter. It was like having the biggest handle held by someone. That person could ask for anything they wanted. Looking at Rebecca's father, who was completely different from my father, there were tears in my eyes. So a real father is like this. I told Rebecca's father all my thoughts about Rebecca and my future life plans without reservation. Finally, I said, Dad, I will definitely take good care of her. I want to be with Rebecca for a long time. Rebecca's father looked at me and patted my shoulder comfortingly. In the evening, my father-in-law sung, and all the important close relatives of the Rebecca family back. He personally took me and introduced me to all the family members present. Rebecca's father was using this way to tell everyone that I was a new member of the Rebecca family. And the reason why I was received with such high standards was only because I was the man chosen by Rebecca. My gaze couldn't help but turn to the main table. Rebecca on the main table was smiling like a spring flower. 11 in the next few months. I became a frequent visitor to the old house of the Rebecca family. When Rebecca was free, I would go with her. When she was too busy, I would go by myself. I played chess with Grandpa. Grandpa loved playing chess, but was a bad player. I could only think of ways to make Grandpa think that he won by his own strength. The old man was very happy and praised my chess skills, to everyone. I accompanied Grandma to take care of her precious flowers. I also put in a lot of effort to find out the habits of the flowers Grandma raised. Every time, I would have a lively discussion with Grandma about flowers. As for the serious father-in-law, I reported every move of Rebecca ruthfully, even if it was only a few days apart each time. Rebecca's father still listened and with great interest. My younger brother Oliver and younger sister Abigail are now very familiar with me. Every time I go to Rebecca's house, the two of them are the happiest. Oliver admires his elder sister the most. After getting first-hand news about his elder sister from me, he completely demands himself by his elder sister's standards and studies even harder. The whole Rebecca family has given me credit for the self-discipline and progress of the eldest grandson. Abigail is a little face control. Her biggest goal in life is to find a boyfriend as handsome as Brother Michael. Since she is too young now, she can only borrow Brother Michael for now. If I go to Rebecca's house on weekends, I must accompany Abigail and her friends to go shopping. Usually, I must pick her up from school, so that Princess Abigail can show off her most handsome brother-in-law in the world to her friends and classmates. Samantha sees all this in her eyes and often asks Rebecca about my preferences and tastes. Now every time I go to Rebecca's house, I will eat the dishes I love. Now I have become a favorite of Rebecca's family. Every time I go to the old house, I am always caught in the battle for possession, between the too old and too young. My actions have won extremely high recognition for Rebecca's family. Sometimes Rebecca is so busy that she doesn't sleep or rest. No matter how hard I persuade her, she won't listen because of her stubbornness. I will go to the old house to complain. Rebecca's father will either come to the door in person or call her home to teach her a lesson. Rebecca's father even announced in front of me and Rebecca, Michael has done a very good job. If Rebecca bullies you in the future, come to me and I will support you." Rebecca glared at me. "You have a backer now." But there was an unmistakable sparkle in her eyes. After returning home, Rebecca wrapped her legs around my waist and put her hands around my neck and kissed me passionately. In the chaotic breathing, I seemed to hear her say, "Michael, I love you." My life with Rebecca is getting better and better. But there are also some annoying things that happen. 12 George seems to have become abnormal. I have become the barometer of his happiness. As long as I live worse than him, he is happy. He will often come to my house and tell me what he has obtained, from big companies to small luxury accessories. And every time he comes to my house, he will despise my home and life. He also often posts comparison pictures of the big villa of the Rose family where he lives and my house through moments and various social platforms, as well as comparison pictures of all kinds of luxurious lives he is enjoying and my life as an assistant. As a result, my father called me Car Ingley many times. Many friends even asked me if I was abused by Rebecca's family. Even Rebecca asked me if I was wronged. I pinched her nose. "Little fool. Have you forgotten what I said when I confessed to you? I don't like a life that seems to be full of flowers and boiling oil. The life I pursue of respect, trust and peace you have all given me. You don't know how satisfied I am with my current life." Then I gently kissed her lips again. Life is like wearing shoes. Only you know whether it is comfortable or not. George's behavior has interfered with Rebecca. Just when I was about to find a way to solve this problem, something happened that made George no longer have the face to show off to me. 13 One day, my father asked me to return to the Michael family, and said there was an important matter to discuss. I originally wanted to say hello to Rebecca and go back by myself. Unexpectedly, when she heard that my father asked me to return to the Michael family, she put down her work and insisted on going back with me. It seemed that when I went home, I would encounter monsters and she could protect me. Unexpectedly, Rose also came. I knew they were aiming at Rebecca. Sure enough, after a simple greeting, George ordered me in a commanding tone to introduce the chairman of Rebecca's family's real estate company to him and Rose. "Michael is not involved in Rebecca's family business. You can contact my second uncle yourself." Before I could speak, Rebecca refused unceremoniously first. Then she took my hand again. "Michael, let's go home." When my father saw that Rebecca was actually protecting me, he immediately stood up and flattered to block Rebecca. Then he pretended to scold George and told him to speak properly. As shrewd as Rose, when she saw Rebecca's protection of me, she realized that I was not lightly regarded in Rebecca's heart. Immediately, she put down her arrogance and took a business-like attitude. She very sincerely explained clearly the ins and outs of the project she wanted to cooperate on. Finally, she said, "Several companies are operating this project, but our Rose family is the most powerful. In addition, this is also the meaning of being related by marriage. Isn't it?" Rebecca looked at me. "Michael, you majored in business. You judge whether it is worth cooperating. I think Dad will support your decision." This sentence is of great weight, and directly highlights my position in Rebecca's family. Father and George's couple all looked directly at me. Father and Rose were incredulous. With my background, I actually had such a position in Rebecca's family. George's gaze turned from incredulity to deep resentment. In the previous life, his short marriage with Rebecca was basically spent in quarrels. He had never received Rebecca's protection. Looking at Rebecca, who wanted to shield me from all harm, my heart was filled with tenderness. After finishing the discussion, we went home directly regardless of my father's detain. Just as we were about to leave, a hand reached out and went straight towards Rebecca. I subconsciously blocked it sideways and grabbed his hand. Hiss! George let out a cry of pain. Due to the intense movement, George's sleeve was pulled up. There was a deep purple bruise on the part I grabbed. I thought George staring at Rebecca like a poisonous snake. I quickly pulled him away from Rebecca. "George, what are you doing?" George seemed to come to his senses. His resentful gaze turned to me. I just want to ask this bitch Rebecca. Why has she never treated me like this? What's wrong with me? Why? I looked at my elder brother who was obsessed. In the previous life. How did you treat her? People's hearts are exchanged for people's hearts. You don't even understand this basic truth. Then I warned him severely. You better not disturb Rebecca. Otherwise, I will make your life even more miserable. After saying that, I pinched his bruise hard. 14 I know this is a good project. Afterwards, I went to Rebecca's house and introduced the project prospects. Rebecca's father agreed with my judgment. A few days later, I introduced Rose to Rebecca's second uncle in charge of real estate. Except for, Rose is an elite in business. Soon, the Rebecca family and the Rose family reached a strategic cooperation. After the cooperation agreement was signed, I represented the Rebecca family to see Rose off. She suddenly stood in front of me and looked me up and down with that disgusting gaze. Unexpectedly, she slapped my buttocks. She raised the hand that slapped my buttocks and sniffed it. What skills did you use to subdue Rebecca? I also want to try. I knew how dirty her hand was. I took out a handkerchief and carefully wiped the place she had slapped. After throwing away the handkerchief, I said in kindly with a glint in my eyes, Rose, this kind of thing had better not happen again. In addition, take good care of George. Otherwise, I will tear up the cooperation agreement immediately. Then you will know how deep my skills are. 15 From that day on, George never harassed me again. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye. It was the spring festival again. Early on New Year's Eve, we were urged by Rebecca's father to return to the old house. Just when the family was happily preparing for the new year, a phone call urgently summoned Rebecca back to the unit. I originally wanted to leave with her, but she asked me to stay and comfort Rebecca's family, who was obviously a little at a loss. I pulled her aside and asked, Rebecca, tell me the truth. What's going on? Rebecca hesitated slightly and said, it's what I was worried about before. My judgment has come true. It turned out that there was an unknown pneumonia in Jingchu City at the end of last year. At the beginning of this year, local medical staff warned on the internet that the SARS in 2003 was repairing. But later there was a rumor refutation, and there was no more related rumors. I just thought it was nothing. But Rebecca didn't think it was so simple. She also applied to go and check on the spot, but was not approved. After that, she was a little worried. She also purchased a large amount of protective supplies in advance. She comforted me again, don't worry too much. You stay at home and use the protective measures we practiced before to protect your family. Thank you for your hard work. After saying that, she left without looking back. I forcibly suppressed my uneasy heart and told Rebecca's father about Rebecca's previous judgment. And I asked him to immediately notify all branches of the Rebecca family to be prepared. But don't spread the news to avoid causing chaos. The virus completely dispersed the joy of the new year. But the reality was even more serious than we imagined. On New Year's Eve, Jingchu City with more than 10 million people was locked down. The military medical system took the lead in mobilizing and rushed to Jingchu City. More and more news came. The new coronavirus with strong infectivity, high intensity, and high fatality rate is especially easy to attack the elderly and the weak. The increasing number of infections and deaths in Jingchu City day by day. The whole country mobilized to support Jingchu. The whole country was terrified by the coronavirus. People all stayed at home silently. All cities were like empty cities. These news and situations made me unable to sleep all night. I thought of Rebecca fighting against the virus. I thought of her dedication to work. I thought of her really weak body. By the second day of the Lunar New Year, I was restless. So I invited Rebecca's father to the study. Dad, I want to find Rebecca. Child, you know how powerful the virus is. Rebecca is in the most dangerous place. But that's her job and there is no way. What if something happens to you when you go? I took a step forward and held his hand. Dad, I go to make sure both Rebecca and I are okay. You know how incompetent Rebecca is in life. Her health is poor. If there is no one to take care of her, I am afraid that I was so choked up that I couldn't continue. Rebecca's father also shed tears. Good child. I also love Rebecca. But after all, that is a life and death place. How can I bear to let you go and risk your life? Dad. I love Rebecca. Marrying her is my luck for 3 lifetimes. Because of her, I have a real family. You also know what my family is like. In the eyes of the world, I am a ridiculous and humble existence. But Rebecca has never despised me because of my background. For the first time, I have felt respect, trust and love from her. You and Rebecca's family treat me like nephews and brothers. Let me know what a decent person is. Dad, if something happens to Rebecca, what's the meaning of the rest of my life? Let me go. I squatted beside Rebecca's father's legs, looked up at him and said slowly, Michael, child. Dad thanks you. Rebecca's father pulled me up and hugged me tightly. I once again emphasized the protective measures and importance to Rebecca's family. In the tears of Oliver and Abigail, I said goodbye to them and rushed to the battlefield of me and Rebecca. 16 Rebecca's family used their connections to send me to the scientific research base where Rebecca was. Rebecca, who was only left with 2 eyes outside wrapped in protective clothing, saw me and quickly ran to steps to me. Her eyes were full of worry and blame. Why are you here? You will be infected with the virus if you are not careful here. Leave quickly. As she said that, she was about to push me away. I put my arms around her waist and looked into her eyes through the hood. You haven't eaten well these days, right? Look. The weight you finally gained is all gone again. She still wanted to speak. I raised my hand to cover her eyes. Rebecca, I have to take good care of you. I know your temper and character best. If I am not by your side, you must have been working non-stop without eating, drinking or sleeping. Right. Rebecca. We agreed to be together for a long time. No one can break their promise. Rebecca, don't drive me away. Let me fight with you. I stayed. Rebecca repeatedly explained to me how to protect and disinfect. And she repeatedly warned me that I must follow the procedures. After knowing her for such a long time, I only now know that she, who is a bit cold sometimes, can be so nagging. After I came, I took over her 3 meals. No matter what she was doing at the appointed time, I would make her stop and eat. Once when I went to find her for a meal, I also met Academician Chen, Rebecca's immediate superior. So I complained to her that Rebecca didn't eat well. And I popularized science to the academician about the theory that the body is the capital of the revolution. If the body collapses, the career cannot continue. Academician Chen deeply agreed and required all scientific researchers to eat on time. In return, Rebecca gave me a blank look. From then on, everyone knew that Rebecca had a nagging husband like a housekeeper. I also became famous in the base. In addition to ensuring Rebecca's food and drink, I also took her to walk for at least half an hour every day. At the same time, I am still trying to learn to be her assistant. At present, I can basically be responsible for her document sorting work. All experimental data are sorted, classified and archived by me. In this way, Rebecca can sleep a little longer every day. The epidemic outside is still raging, and the pressure on the scientific research base is also increasing. Looking at the increasing numbers every day, scientific researchers know that behind each cold number are once vivid lives and happy families. The pressure of work is getting greater and greater. Although I take care of her, Rebecca still doesn't gain weight, which is very distressing. With the concerted efforts of the people of the whole country, the epidemic prevention and control has achieved remarkable results. Also in October of this year, the domestic first coronavirus vaccine led by Academician Chen was added to the vaccine implementation plan. The main scientific researchers of Academician Chen's team were able to be unsealed and go home. After the mobile phone was connected to the network, there were 99 missed calls and messages on the phone and WeChat. Except for some friends who were not notified of their whereabouts. All these calls and messages were from George. The core meaning of his message is only one: why didn't you tell him about Rose's matter? The tone also changed from relatively calm at the beginning to hysterical at the end. I calculated the time. George should have been unable to endure anymore. Rose should have completely revealed her preferences to George. And George should have witnessed and been forced to participate in Rose's preferences. A kind of preferences that no normal person can bear. 17 After nearly a month of closed isolation ended, we went directly to Rebecca's house. Originally, Rebecca wanted to go to the Michael family first. As a result, when she called my father, he didn't even know that I had been missing for nearly 9 months. Rebecca gave me an apologetic look and gave up on going to the Michael family. When Rebecca and I arrived at the old house, all the main important members of the close branches below Grandpa Rebecca came to the door to welcome us. After entering the house, Grandpa and Grandma grabbed Rebecca and said she had lost weight. Rebecca's father and Samantha surrounded me and asked us about the vaccine development. At this time, Oliver and Abigail, the two little ones, passed through the crowd and came to us. Oliver shouted that his elder sister was too thin, and said that he would give all the delicious food at home to his elder sister. Abigail threw herself into my arms and cried, saying that if her brother-in-law didn't come again, she missed me so much that she could hardly remember what I looked like. This made the whole family laugh. What I didn't expect was that Rebecca's family actually opened an ancestral hall, and recorded a separate page in the genealogy. Daughter Rebecca, son-in-law Michael, risked their lives to develop vaccines for the country, to contain the coronavirus, save the people from fire and water, and continue the glory of the Rebecca family. The previous page records the deeds of Rebecca's predecessors who risked their lives to smuggle urgently needed supplies to support national liberation. And I am also the only son-in-law allowed to be recorded in the genealogy, since the Rebecca family established the ancestral hall. After opening the ancestral hall, everyone began to prepare for the celebration dinner. According to Rebecca's father, it was to make up for the New Year's Eve dinner. Busy, full of laughter and steaming smoke. It is the taste of home. The worldly fireworks can most soothe the mortal heart. 18 After staying at Rebecca's old house for a few days and returning home, George came to see me with bloodshot eyes. After meeting, his first sentence was, "Why didn't you tell me about Rose's matter? I am your own brother. Did you ask me? Did you give me a chance to tell you? Moreover, why should I tell you? Are we in a relationship of brotherly love? Don't you know how I died in the previous life?" I was not to be outdone and said distaffanially. Seeing that I didn't give in at all, he began to cry and sob miserably again. I know that Rose is a sadist. In sexual matters, whips, candles and ropes are essential for sadomasochisms. She likes to force people to make various shameful postures and actions to satisfy her. She also likes to abuse small animals, especially cats. She has a special cat abuse hall. She not only abuses herself, but also likes to force others to abuse. She watches with great interest on the side. I also know that Rose plays very wildly. In the so-called entertainment clubhouse managed by George, all kinds of immoralities can be freely displayed. This is also the main place where Rose wins over powerful people. She uses immoral feelings as evidence to control powerful people. The reason why I know these things is because Rose also forced me. But for behaviors that are not normal for people, I firmly refused. For this reason, Rose once tortured me with various torture methods. If it weren't for giving birth to an excellent heir for their Rose family, I would have died in Rose's hands. But I didn't expect that Rose was even more unbearable than I knew. She actually sold children. In addition to abusing for pleasure, she was actually extracting adrenal red pigment that can make people rejuvenate. She dares to be unscrupulous because money can cover up ugliness. Looking at George, who was crying like a puddle of mud, I asked, "Did you do everything she asked you to do?" He raised his head and said in shock, "How dare I not do it? If I don't do it, she will beat me to death. Will she also cut off your luxurious life and not let you participate in various events? Right?" I added sarcastically. "Yes. So, You have broken through the bottom line of being a human being. I interrupted his words. What can I do? Didn't you give in too? What right do you have to laugh at me? George seemed to have caught my handle, and stood up and pointed at me. Brother. This is where I am different from you. I would rather die than do inhumane things. I think as long as I don't break through my own bottom line, others will respect my bottom line. George saw my righteousness and collapsed and cried again like a person without bones. Suddenly, as if he thought of something, he looked at me with hopeful eyes and said, "Since you are not afraid of pain, can we change places? We are twins and very similar. No one will find out." Just when I was feeling speechless, I didn't expect Rebecca to have entered the living room. Without saying a word, she picked up a baseball bat beside her and hit George on the head and face. He ran away covering his head. After coming back, she hugged my waist tightly again. "Michael, no one can replace you. No one can." I hugged her shoulder back. How could I be willing to part with my delicate person that I have cultivated? 19 at the end of this year. With the improvement of the epidemic situation, the country held a grand ceremony to commend those who had made outstanding contributions in the fight against the epidemic. Academician Chen was awarded the country's highest medal. The next day, sponsored by several national ministries and commissions, a commendation ceremony was held for other people who had received honors in the fight against the epidemic. Rebecca was awarded the Outstanding Contribution Award. Rebecca's father, Samantha, Oliver, Abigail and I, as Rebecca's closest people, were invited to attend the ceremony. Coincidentally, this place is exactly the place where Rose received the annual Business Elite Award in the previous life. After Rebecca went on stage to receive the award, she gave such an acceptance speech. To receive this honor, what I want to thank the most is my family. Their support is my greatest strength. Especially my lover Michael. He resolutely came to the scientific research base at the risk of danger, and did all the work except scientific research without complaint. My health is very poor. If it weren't for him, I might have fallen down early. More than half of my honor belongs to him. The epidemic has made many people experience life and death. So did I. After this test, I realized that the weight of my life is my husband Michael. For the rest of my life, I swear that I will never leave him. I love you, Michael. There was thunderous applause from the audience. Rebecca confessed to me in front of the national audience. I suddenly burst into tears. As long as people are willing to pay, life will give the result. I hugged Rebecca tightly and kept saying in her ear, "Rebecca, I love you." 20 before the banquet began, Rebecca was called by Academician Chen to meet colleagues. When I was bored, George appeared beside me like a ghost. He pulled me towards the rooftop regardless. Déjà vu. When we arrived at the rooftop, he directly hugged me and wanted to fall downstairs again. I broke free from his arm at once and firmly clasped his shoulders with both hands. George couldn't move at all. He struggled in vain. "I lost to you into lifetimes. I am not reconciled. Why? I am the one with the destiny of a rising dragon." He also screamed hysterically, "I want to choose again. Choose again." I clasped him again. It was as if I saw George of the previous life again. Pale as a ghost. Haggard and powerless. Before I died in the previous life, I had always been wondering why George would let himself live like this. Now I understand. He always only wants to take shortcuts. Little does he know that shortcuts are the farthest way in the world. He always only knows how to escape. Little does he know that escape is the hardest confrontation in the world. Facing the life bestowed by fate. He is completely unable to fight and can only go with the flow. But he has ambitions that are far from his abilities. In the end, he will only live his life into the way he hates the most. Sadness on top of sadness. George was still murmuring, "I want to choose again. I will never choose wrong again." I patted George, who was in a frenzy, hard. "No matter how you choose, you will eventually end up with today's result. The destiny of a rising dragon is fought for. And you are a loser in life. A coward that I will always look down on." After saying that, I left George, who was like a puddle of mud, and left the rooftop. I don't want to stay in this dark place anymore. I want to find my light. I stepped into the banquet hall, and saw Rebecca, who was looking for me everywhere at a glance. The bright lights still couldn't cover up her radiance. When she saw me, she quickly walked towards me. The after images of the lights formed the illusion of wings behind her. In this life, I am willing to be her wings that soar straight into the sky. 21 After completing the preliminary cooperation with Rose's real estate project, I immediately stopped the follow-up engineering cooperation. A year later, George reported Rose's crimes of cat abuse and participation in child trafficking under his real name. The reputation of Rose's family was ruined, and the stock price plummeted. Rose's family shrank from a leading enterprise group in the country to an unremarkable company until it disappeared. The Michael family still continued their breeding men plan. Although they could no longer get my help, I was the unsurpassable ceiling for men of the Michael family.